Okay. Anthony, we are live.
Thank you, Gio. Appreciate that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to HCD's Office Hours for ESG. My name is Anthony Zepeda, and I will be your moderator for today's Office Hours. We're going to hold for just a couple of minutes for more of our colleagues to join us. In the meantime, you are welcome and encouraged to introduce yourself in the chat with your name and the region or agency that you represent. As stated, we're going to hold for just a minute or two to let more people online. So welcome. Good morning, everyone. We are just waiting for another minute. We're going to start at 10:02. In the meantime, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat with the name and the region you represent or the agency that you represent. And we'll begin at 10:02. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Again, welcome to today's office hours for ESG. My name is Anthony Zepeda. I'll be serving as the moderator for today's office hours. If you are just joining us, please go to the chat and introduce yourself with your name and the region or agency you represent. And as a reminder, this office hour session is being recorded for public record. And the second reminder is HCD policy does not allow AI bots in the meeting. So please disable your note-taking AI bot if you are using it. Otherwise, we have to remove you from the meeting. Next slide, please. And here's how you ask a question for today's session. All questions must be submitted in the Q&A box. It's on the ribbon below when you click on the screen. It's on the ribbon below, or for some of you it might be above, but for most it's below. And it's a Q&A box. Got a little example on the screen. Type your question in there and submit it. Please put your name and the region or agency you represent. And we will answer those throughout the presentation and also at the end of the presentation. We request that you don't put your questions in the chat, even though that's very tempting. It's just they end up getting lost with all of the other dialogue going on. So please put your questions in the Q&A box. Next slide, please. And for the slides in the recording, please note that it will be recorded and the slide deck with the recording will be sent out approximately 2 weeks from today's session, and then will be available on the ESG webpage and the ESG YouTube page. All right, next slide, please. Okay, quick updates on the 2024 ESG NOFA. We're just going to give a brief update today because we're going to be focusing the next 2 office hour sessions on 2024 contracts. I just wanted to let you know, if you aren't already aware, the 2024 funds have been awarded. Notifications and award letters have been sent out. We have been working with the awarded grantees on a back and forth basis to make sure we have all the documents in order. Standard agreements are being developed right now, and the contract exhibits for the standard agreement, those which your agency will sign, they're available on the ESG webpage, and you can take a look at those now. And we highly recommend that you begin taking a look at it. Maybe not this week with all the 2023 stuff wrapping up, but definitely next week start taking a look at those 2024 exhibits, because there will be a lot of changes compared to previous years' ESG standard agreements. And so next slide, please. If you have questions for your 2023 grants and moving forward on your 2024 grants, please reach out to your ESG team representative, Sam, Giovanni, and myself. You always have the NOFA inbox as well. If you're not sure who to contact, or it's a general question on ESG, you can submit it through the ESG NOFA inbox below. That is monitored Monday through Friday during normal business hours, and you will receive a response. Next slide, please. Oops, one more back. Sorry. Oh, now I guess this is good enough. Sorry, office hours will be moving to monthly format in August 2025. We announced that last month, and we'll announce again this month. So we're moving to a monthly format once a month, and our next office hours session will be on September 17th. And in the meantime, as mentioned in the previous slide, grant representatives are available to provide technical assistance at any time during normal business hours, so please reach out. And next slide. All right, any questions on the updates? Probably not, but doesn't appear so. So with that, let's jump right on into today's spotlight session, which is wrapping up the 2023 contracts. So this office hours is going to be a bit of a hybrid session. We're going to present information as we normally do, but not necessarily any new programmatic information. We're just going to focus on these last, 5 days or 4 days for RFFs of the 2023 contracts. And I realize I kind of glossed over something, but we'll be going into much more detail with this presentation. So we want to leave plenty of time for you to ask your questions. We also want to encourage you to ask questions. This is the time to get all the TA you need. Staff's going to be very busy in the next week as we process just a crush of RFFs and a ton of questions coming in on, can we do this? Can we do that? So feel free to ask now. If you have a question, get it out there. We'll answer it, or we'll do our best to answer it. And we want to encourage that throughout this presentation. So with that, let's jump to the next slide. All right, the 2023 contract expenditure deadlines. This slide pretty much represents everything we're going to talk about today. And it's really the two key areas for your 2023 contracts at this point of time for your contracts. The expenditure deadline. First up is the expenditure deadline for your 2023 contracts is this Monday, upcoming Monday, August 18th, 2025. I want to be very clear on this. This is the expenditure deadline for ESG expenses for the 2023 contracts. It's the cutoff date for any ESG related expenditures that HCD will reimburse. Meaning that anything comes out, if you submit an RFF for August expenses on August 19th, we're going to kick it back. We can't, that they're ineligible. It is this Monday, close of business, August 18th, all ESG expenditures need to be completed. More on both of these topics in the next few slides. The final RFF, this is point number 2, the final RFF that you can submit is due September 15th, 2025. So the expenditure deadline is Monday. And for all those expenditures that you completed by August 18th, you can then submit the RFFs for them by September 15th. And that is the last day that we can accept an RFF for 2023 contracts. We encourage you to submit all RFFs as soon as possible. Normally, we ask you to submit them after, say you submit number 1, we say don't submit number 2 until number 1 is approved. That's out the door now. We just got 5 days left, 4 or 5 days left. We need you to submit. If you have them there and they're available, we need you to submit all of your RFFs as soon as possible. Even though we don't encourage it, they can be out of sequence as well. RFF number 1, RFF number 3, then RFF number 2. We will work through with you to get those all taken care of. At least we can start taking a look at them in advance to make sure that we can process them in time, because we will receive a crush of RFFs in the next week. If you have questions on supporting documentation, we're going to cover a lot of that today, but you can always reach out to your rep as well. One important note that we want to get in there is that the certificate of completion for your 2023 ESG standard agreements must be included with your final RFF. And so when it's time to submit that RFF, your final RFF, make sure you submit the certificate of completion with it, as we cannot accept the final RFF unless it has the certificate of completion. We'll go over this in a little more detail in the slides ahead. Now I will hand it over to Gio for the next two slides on ways that you might. Oh, I'm sorry, Gio. I'm jumping ahead, aren't I? I'm going to cover this slide, then I'm going to hand it over to Gio. And look at Gio, he was jumping up already. Just wanted to get these few quick questions out. Can HCD grant a contract extension or expenditure date extension for 2023 contracts? Absolutely not. These dates are set by HUD and the standard agreement that HUD has with HCD, the state of California. We have to have those expenditure dates set in stone. We can't change them at all, but we can work with you and to help you spend your money and time, which is the next point. What if we are unable to spend down the grant by August 18th? Reach out to your ESG representative. We might be able to find ways, give you some suggestions to expend some additional dollars for your agency. And if not, we can work on the closeout process, immediately start on the closeout process. It helps us identify what work, the workload we're going to have to do for these standard agreements in the next week or so. The last question, can HCD help us spend our remaining grant funds? Yes, we can. And we're going to go over that today. And Gio is actually going to kick that off in the next two slides. I'm going to hand it over to him right now.
So much, Anthony. Good morning, everybody. So we've gotten a lot of questions about, how to spend remaining funds. Again, you are contractually obligated to spend every dollar that you are awarded. We want to help you get there. A lot of grantees, a lot of you have a lot of money in rapid rehousing. So, again, well, it's great that a lot of you are focused on rental assistance, whether short-term, medium-term, and rental arrears. There's other costs that you can actually help spend down your grant. So in this case, remember, you can always incur costs as all the way to the back of your award letter date. So as seen right here, the award letters were issued for most of our nonprofits were issued in December of 2023. There was an earlier date for some of our COCs who are on this call. So again, you can always backdate expenses to the date of that award letter to help you spend down, whether it's staff costs, whether it's rental arrears for a tenant, application fees for your clients. Those can help out. Again, going down, staff costs, training, services, housing search and placement for our caseworkers that are on this call. You can those are billable to ESG, and we can reimburse you for that. Just again with staff costs, we want to make sure that you are tracking those hours, making sure that those hours are being tracked. Because remember, that is a federal requirement. We need to be seeing that hours are being tracked for staff working on ESG related programs. So moving on to the next slide here. So this right here is kind of a cheat sheet. This is for rapid rehousing. Again, reach out to one of us reps. We can send you this. This was given to us. This is also on our website, but this is from HUD. And pretty much this kind of gives you a breakdown of what you can spend. So again, we have rental assistance over here on the far left corner with short-term, medium-term rental arrears. And then as we move closer to the right, we have financial assistance, service costs. Again, financial assistance, we have rental application fees, security deposits, last month's rent, utility deposits, utility payments. For the utilities, it has to be in the tenant's name. It cannot be in anyone else's other name as long as the client that you're helping. Moving costs. Again, other things, as I mentioned before, search and placement, stability case management, mediation, legal services, credit repair. Really, this is going to help you spend down as much as you possibly can. With that, all that being said, I'm going to hand it back over to Anthony. Anthony, if you want to take it away. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you, Gio. And just want to pause here for a moment and reach out to our reps and specialists Was there anything else that you wanted to add, the team wants to add in terms of what Gio was just discussing? All right, looks like hearing none. We'll go ahead and get back to this slide. So this is a repeat of the slide that we just looked at, the two main points of what we are going over today. And the reason I'm repeating this for you is that we've just got 4 days, 5 days left. And these are really the two things to focus on right now for your contract. If you need to get it wrapped up, this is what you need to focus on. And if you've already got it wrapped up, well, great. You can send in a certificate of completion and your final RFF. But going for the rest of you, we've covered the expenditure deadline. That's what we just went over. The last day to spend for ESG is this Monday, the August 18th. And so it's the cutoff date for all ESG expenses. So that's the first focus right there. Just get all of your expenses taken care of by the 18th. Moving forward, the next step is the final RFF, which is due on September 15th, 2025, or by December 15th, 2025. You can submit it a lot sooner. We'd appreciate that. And for some of you, it might be your only RFF, your first RFF. Others, it might just be your second, and you're not real familiar with the RFF process. And so in order to get these processed more quickly, in order to get you paid more quickly, we're going to review the requirements for submitting your final RFF, your first RFF, your second RFF, and RFFs in general, because this is where we receive the most questions. And we covered a lot, but it's still, ESG can be very challenging at times. We know that. So we want to make sure you understand all of these basics so we don't have to send these back and have you resubmit and slow down the payment process as we work to close out these 2023 contracts. So with that, let's jump into the submitting the RFF portion of this presentation. So next slide, please. All right, so submitting your final RFFs. These are real basics here, but we want to remind you of them because some of you may not have submitted before, some of you might have forgotten. There's two forms that you submit, two primary forms that you submit with your RFFs, and Sam in a moment is going to go all over them, but I'm kind of setting that up right now. Your RFF form that you submit to us, we need you to submit that signed in a PDF format. Sometimes people submit it in Excel unsigned and we have to kick it right back. So the actual request for funds form completed and signed in a PDF format. For the detailed expense report or the DIR, please make sure to submit in Excel format. And so we can go through the line items. Oftentimes folks will submit, the DIR in a PDF, and that just isn't going to work, and we have to extract it and pull it out, and it just takes a lot of work, and it is not meeting the requirements, and we can't let that go by now as we get into this crunch. Also, when submitting your final RFFs, organize and label your supporting documentation. Once again, we're going to cover that. We've covered it before. But in order to get you quickly paid and quickly processed, it was very helpful if your rep does not have to be the detective in terms of looking at the line item, your supporting documentation, and trying to match up client fund. You can just highlight the line items for supporting documentation, and we'll go over that in a second. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to hand it over to Sam, who's going to quickly go over the requirements for submitting your RFFs.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. So we're going over the RFF form, just some basic information, but it bears repeating. Make sure the draw request number, the RFF number is correct, that the contract number is also correct. So if you have two contracts, make sure it's the request for the right one. And for the reporting date range, make sure it encompasses all of the line items in the DIR. And then obviously your grantee contact information if people leave their job, retire, make sure that's updated. And then make sure the approved budget amount is what was rewarded, especially with the indirect costs, make sure it's in the correct budget component. And then the previous draw amount total, that's important too, because we need to know how much money that you have left. Next slide, please. Okay. And then we have some check boxes here. Make sure that you check off the appropriate certifications. Make sure that your authorized representative's name is printed and the title is there, and then signed in the PDF and dated. And note on signatures on PDFs. Don't do the fancy signature things that prevent us from signing at other places like the square below. And then, as Anthony said, make sure that this RFF form is submitted in PDF. And I think next slide, please. Okay. And then here's the DIR. Make sure that's the correct program component tab that you're drawing from. Make sure the RFF number, also known as the draw number, is the same as the RFF form. And then the reporting period, make sure it encompasses all of the DIR line items and that it matches the RFF form. And for the ESG component, make sure the activity, the vendor, and the billing period are correct. And then for mini monitoring purposes, please highlight or note in the next column over what the backup documentation is referring to. Okay. Next slide.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. So those are the basics. For some of you, I know you're probably going, that's it. But we really want to go over these basics and get these RFS in and get them processed and not have to just keep shooting them back. So, and with that.
Oh, Anthony, I wanted to step in and
please, yes.
remind everybody that for the 2023 grant year, we updated our RFF forms and our DER forms. So you need to make sure that you're using the current forms, which are the ones that we're showing here. And all of those forms are available on our website.
Thank you, Tuesday. That's a very good point. Please use the most current RFF form, which is available on our website. As some of you veterans will just pull out an old one, but can't accept those anymore. They were updated this year. Okay, so thanks everyone. I really appreciate that. Those are the basics for submitting an RFF. And now we're going to go into the specifics. Submitting your first RFF, for those, there are some of you out there. Wanted to let you know, full backup documentation is required for all DER line items. So unfortunately, if you put off submitting that first RFF till the very end, you're going to have most likely have a lot of line items. You are required to submit supporting documentation for every line item on there. If it is a ridiculously large number of line items, please reach out to your rep or the ESG NOFA inbox and we can discuss the best way for getting that submitted. That'll make it easier on both the grantee and on HCD in terms of our review and approval process. So that includes full backup documentation, includes full client files for all rental assistance claims. And we'll go over that in a subsequent slide. And then we also have ESG, rapid rehousing, and HP client file checklists available on our website that we can drop in the chat as well. But those are helpful in putting together a client file. And on that topic, go ahead and jump to the next slide, please. So what is a complete client file? Well, in general, for rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention, any kind of rental assistance, a complete client file at minimum is going to include homelessness certification forms. All these are completed and signed as applicable. An HMIS report with the entry dates, the client entry dates, a housing stability plan, a signed completed lease agreement, a completed FMR and rent reasonableness certification, a rental assistance agreement, a habitability inspection, a lead-based paint assessment, and a VAWA addendum. All these are just the basics of a full client file. There's more information in the rapid rehousing and HP complete client file. list on our website under forms, and we can also drop that in the chat as necessary. And let's go to the next slide in terms of complete client files. The requirements aren't as stringent for, say, street outreach or emergency shelter. However, you still need to include, in terms of backup documentation, your receipts for small purchases, in terms of staff time, timesheets, payroll documents, pay stubs. In terms of supplies, again, receipts and the timesheets. And then, for emergency shelter, you can also include something like insurance, invoice payment, just any kind of documentation that is going to support that expense, and that a reasonable person taking a look at this file, maybe 2 years from now or a year from now, could correlate your DER line items with your supporting documentation and see that the RFF was in order and was eligible to be reimbursed. Next slide, please. So those are the requirements for the first RFFs. The second RFF and subsequent RFFs, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on, the requirements are not as stringent, but there are requirements. Supporting documentation is required for 2 line items per component. You, the grantee, will select the 2 line items per component to document. You'll highlight them on the DER, and you will include the supporting documentation for just 2 line items per components. If it's rapid rehousing and HP and it's rental assistance, then you will need to meet the requirements of including full client files for each DER item that you have identified as the item that you want us to review and that you're submitting supporting documentation for. Next slide, please. I just want to touch on one thing before I jump into this. In terms of HCD does have, it's at our discretion to request additional supporting documentation on your RFFs and DERs. And I'm not going to go into all of the statutory supporting citations, but if you like, we can always look those up for you. But it's both at the federal level in the CFR 200, Part 200, requirements that allows us that leeway. And then in the HCD, the guidelines, the state guidelines for ESG, it is also in there in multiple areas that we can request additional supporting documentation. So with that, we're going to go into the RFF and DERs, some of the best practices. A lot of this is review for you, but we just want to bring this to mind as we move forward. Sam touched on many of these. Your correct reporting period, the HCD representative name. Is it an eligible activity? Is there a description of a detailed description in the line item? If you have questions on these, you can always reach out to your representative if you need assistance. And next slide, please. I want to continue now for the supporting documentation for your RFF, the best practices. Client files identified by HMIS number. Header or title pages for multiple files. I'll get on that in the next slide. Highlight the DER line items that correspond to the supporting documentation that you're submitting. And this may seem silly to say, but make it as simple to review as possible. I realize, we're all busy. I know you're very busy, and oftentimes you just get the file from your sub or your service provider, upload it to us, and then we have to dig through all of their, what supporting documentation is this supporting? And oftentimes we just have to send those back because it's just too much work to go through 50 to 200 pages of files trying to correlate them with a single line item. So, tell a story. Here's the expense, here's the date, here's what it's for, here's the supporting documentation, and that's it. Makes it very simple and straightforward. Next slide, please. And this may seem very simple, but for example, if you're submitting an RFF with supporting documentation for 3 different components of your ESG grant, and you're submitting a bunch of supporting documentation, just break it up. Put a simple header in the client files or the supporting documentation, like what you're looking at. Administration, here's our backup documentation, and then as a PDF that's attached, all of the supporting documentation administration. Next slide, please. And then you would have a header for your emergency shelter backup documentation. And then you would just, it's PDF, and you just put it all in there. Next slide, please. And then you get to your rapid rehousing backup documentation, client files, and you just put it there. So just that simple act of putting separators, so we don't have, well, is this for rapid rehousing or is this file for administration? We don't know. We're looking at them for the first time. And so any way that you can make it simple to tell that story will help you get it processed a lot faster. And so with that, these next slide, I will turn over to Tuesday, who will lead us through how to correctly enter indirect cost in your RFS, as this is also another huge hang-up when submitting your RFS. Take it away, Tuesday.
I do want to clear up for rapid rehousing documentation. Please submit each of your client files as a separate client file, and make sure that they're named by the HMIS number that is associated with the line item and the DER, so that we know that we can associate them. And you need to have within those documents something that shows me that those that client really is the client that's on that DER. So you need that HMIS number to actually be on the documentation within there. So not just naming the file that, but also having the HMIS number obvious within the client file. Because that is something we need to look for. I've frequently reviewed files, and I cannot tell if you're talking about the same client as what's on the DER. And sometimes I get the same file sent to me twice with different HMIS numbers. So I need that detail within there. Thank you. All right, next slide. Oh, actually, maybe it's, you are on the right slide. I'm sorry. Go back one. Thank you. A reminder for your 2023, if your organization is taking indirect costs, those costs are 10% of your direct costs for each billing cycle. Not all organizations are taking indirect costs, so this may not be important for you. The cost is by component and by each RFF. You must take your indirect costs with each submittal. You can't claim indirect costs for something that you submitted previously. If you have not spent all of your indirect costs on your budget, we can help you move those indirect costs into a direct cost component. Reach out to your representatives and we'll help you with that for the 2023 contracts. Some organizations do have a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, or a NICRA, in place that allows them to take a higher indirect cost rate. Please note on your DER if you're using a NICRA in the line item for your indirect cost, because otherwise we're going to look at it and say, oh, this is way too much, and it'll cause us to maybe send it back when we really are, when the amount is really correct. Indirect costs are part of each component's total funds. If your rapid rehousing budget is $50,000, your indirect costs are part of that $50,000, not in addition to that. In addition to that $50,000. Now, next slide. All right, here's a example of what the DER with indirect costs should look like. The first thing you need to do is complete your DER with your total direct costs. Then you're going to calculate your 10% or whatever your indirect cost rate is, and enter that as a single line item. You'll see this on the bottom of this template. So as a single line item, that where both the activity is called indirect cost and the line item description should also say indirect cost. You see that I wrote in here that it's 10% of 7,500. I can't see it. I got covered. $562. So, and then the $756 total. Then you're going to take those two costs and you're going to add them together and come up with the total, which in this case is $8,319, which will be what you put in your total for your DER. You'll use those two separate numbers, the $7,562 and the $756 in your RFF on separate line items, and you'll put them separately into e-service. Please, in all cases, have your indirect cost as a single line item, not multiple line items, and then as a single line item as the last line item in your DER, so that we can easily calculate that they're correct. And this is one of the reasons that I'm very big on having the DER submitted as a Excel. It helps us do the calculations and make sure that everything's totaled correctly between direct and indirect costs. If we need to go through and add up multiple lines of indirect costs, we frequently find rounding errors and end up having to send back the DER and RFF to you. So as you see on this slide, the direct costs totaled 7,562, indirect costs were 756, for a total of 8,319. This is for grant year 2023. 2024 grant year will have a slightly different method for claiming your indirect costs, and we'll go over that in greater detail in a future office hours. Next slide. Just as a reminder, we have so many good resources on our website. You'll find forms, you'll find policies for every component. You'll find our new RFFs, our current DERs, the budget revision workbook, and all those can be found under the Forms tab. And if you ever have questions or you need a form, this is a really good place to start. This should be your first stop. Also, you'll find the client file checklist for rapid rehousing, actually for all 4 of the components that serve clients, client file checklists. And what's really wonderful about those is they have hyperlinks to for other forms or the requirements or the rules and regulations that make that form a requirement. So it's a really good resource for you to find a form since you don't have to develop a form going forward. All right, thank you. Next slide. I think we have questions now.
Thank you, Tuesday, and thank you, everyone. So we've gone over everything today. Want to just state that the most important things to worry about right now for your 2023 contracts are, number one, the expenditure deadline. Work with us and call us, reach out. We can help you, or email. We'll send you information. Try and get in as much billing as you can. We highlighted that you can backdate to the award date, not the contract execution date, but the award date. And you can perhaps fill in billing costs for staff time, for training, for purposes that are eligible, and for other eligible services that are out there. And once we are finished with that expenditure deadline, close of business this next Monday, really start focusing on getting your RFFs in as soon as possible. Don't wait till the 15th. I know you're all busy, but that's just going to lead to delays in processing and paying if we get them all at once in the same day. So just get those in, work with us. We'll help you. If you're having trouble with the first RFF, it looks too big, reach out. We can help you with that as well. But I just want to reiterate that point before we go into the Q&A. So with that, Amanda, did we have any questions in the question box?
It does not look like we have any right now, but if anyone would like to go off mute, just raise your hand and we would be happy to answer your question live.
And it can be any question you want related to the expenditure deadline, or submitting RFFs. Believe me, there are people out there who are experts who've done this forever who still ask questions. So no question is too little. If you think it's too basic, please go ahead and ask it anyway. All right, it looks like we are going to go ahead and move forward. So next slide, please. And these are just the standard wrap-up slides. Your ESG resource page. You can find all the required forms, cheat sheets, eligible component expenses, certificate of completion. All of it's available on the ESG webpage at the link there. You also have our ESG program, our contact information at the ESG NOFA inbox. As mentioned before, someone is manning that, or tracking it Monday through Friday during normal business hours, and you will always get a response. Next slide, please. And you can always follow us on our social media as we anticipate beefing this up here in the year ahead. Next slide, please. And we are always looking for good people. If you want to join us in sharing our mission here in California, take a look at our website. We're always looking for good people to join our team, and we can really use it. hopefully we're going to have some new people soon. And with that, I just want to remind everyone that we are now at office hours for a monthly session. So the next one won't be till September 17th. Until then, take care, reach out to us. We hope to hear from you very soon regarding the expenditure deadline date and the RFF submittals. Thanks so much.
And
Yes,
Anthony,
Tim.
this is Tim. I just want to chime in real quick before everybody leaves. So, hi everyone. Just want to remind just another quick pointer regarding the 2023 contracts and your eCivis accounts. Okay, I know there's some folks on the call this morning where maybe you have submitted your RFFs, whether it's your first one or your second or third or so forth, that maybe we have sent back to you that we need changes requested for those. Okay, so please pay attention to your eCivis account status for those RFFs that you created that maybe we sent back that we need edits for. Okay, so please do not create a new one. You must go into that same RFF that you created, and if it says changes requested from our staff, please, you can edit those RFFs. Okay, they cannot sit in changes requested. Those must be resolved. Okay, and those must be edited and resubmitted. Okay, I know a lot of us are familiar with that, but just a reminder. Okay, so do not create a new one. If we send it back for changes, please edit that RFF with the requested changes and resubmit. Okay, so your eCivis account cannot have any changes requested status before the close of this grant year. Okay, so please make sure that you edit those RFFs if we requested edits, and do not create new ones, and that will help us, and that will help everything go smooth. So thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate that. And on that note, we'll go ahead and wrap up this session. Our last session on 2023 contracts. Our next two will be on 2024 contract standard agreements. Take care, everyone. See you soon.